All right, so welcome back again. So we're going to start actually making an application, like a real app, that uses some of these size, classes, skills. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our TicTacToe game. We kind of made the model object in the last unit, and we're going to implement it with UI. So we're going to talk about model, view, and controller, but we're going to spend most of our time, like the next many videos, on the view, which is like the stuff that you prepare in storyboard. So this is the app that we're going to be making. There's a couple goals that we've got for this app. So, I guess I could show it to you really quick. So here it is on an iPhone 5. And you can see that if we click, we can play the game of TicTacToe, right? So nothing hugely surprising there. You've seen this in other examples as well. Really the main thing is, what do we want it to look like on different sizes? And what we want to do here is we want to make sure that it looks good on like the original iPhone, the 5, and then the 6 and the 6 Plus. Note the actual images on these are the same, but it kind of spreads itself out a little bit to take over the whole view. And then one thing that is different is we're going to use different images on the iPad. So here's the iPad image, and you can see that they're actually slightly different images than what the iPhone uses. And the reason for this is because on iPad we're going to choose to support both portrait and landscape, and we wanted images that were kind of squares so that it would kind of rotate and not feel as jarring. But you'll notice that on the iPad, these images, if you technically look at like the X's, those are not square X's, right? So those are tall, skinny X's. And that works out well because what we're going to do on the iPhone is we're going to only support portrait and not landscape. But on the iPad, we're going to support portrait and landscape. And there are reasons why you might make these decisions. But to be honest, I just thought about TicTacToe. What might you want to do on an iPhone? Really, it only really needs portrait. But on an iPad, you never know what holder somebody's got. It'd be nice to be able to support both landscape and portrait there. And to be honest, Apple encourages some of these same design patterns. So by making this choice to only support portrait on the iPhone, we've actually knocked out 2 of our 4 size classes, which makes our life a little easier, right? So we don't have to worry about compact for iPhones that are landscaped, and we don't have to worry about this compact regular for the iPhone 6 Plus that's landscape. Don't even have to worry about them. So whenever we're kind of dealing with like our 9 different storyboards, the only ones we're ever going to have to worry about is if we want to put something on both, we'll have to use the regular height, any width. And then if we want to put something on iPhone only, we'll put it over onto this area. And if we want to make it iPad only, we'll do something over there. And you can see there's actually a lot of little changes if I put them up side by side. You can see that the new game button is going to be up top on the iPad, where it's on the bottom on the iPhone. The label is actually a label that's on the screen in the iPhone, or it's actually inside the nav bar on iPad. So there's going to be a lot of little differences. So let's go ahead and get this guy started. So go ahead and open up Xcode, create a new project, single view application like we've always used, and you can go ahead and call it TicTacToe. There's actually no problems with hyphens in the name. That's no big deal at all. Select Swift, and Universal is what we're going to be using this time. Then you can save it wherever you like. Once you've got it open, what we're going to do is we're actually going to want to get some of those images. You can put images into this like assets area if you're doing things with like different resolutions. We're not going to be using different resolutions, and some of the icons or some of the images are icon files. So I'm just going to have you drop them into supporting files. There should be a link above, or you can actually get it from the slides as well. You can go ahead and download these images. Just click on download. Download the zip anywhere you want, and then extract it. So here I just saved it in some arbitrary folder, and then I've got these image files here. And then what I like to do is I like to just drag and drop them. So I'll just go and open up Xcode, and then I'll just drag them and drop them right into supporting files. It'll ask if you want to copy them in. Yeah, copy them in. And so there's a couple of files that are in here as far as images. So there's icons of a couple of different sizes, one for the iPad, one for the iPhone, one for an iPhone at 2x, things like that. There's an iPad board, which is a perfect square. If you look at the dimensions on it, it's 670 by 670. There's the iPad O, which is again a perfect square, 194, 194. iPad X, the same size. And then there's the iPhone board, which is a slight, like, tall, skinny thing, so it's not square. And then the O's and the X's are some size for those. So we've got those images ready to go in our app. The neat thing about the icon files is you could actually run it, like right now, and then hit the home button, which is Command-Shift-H, and it'll show you that icon. So here mine ran on an iPhone 6, it looks like, Command-Shift-H, And I can see I've got TicTacToe. Oh, I've also got the one where I was practicing. You only have one. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with this guy. The first thing we want to do is we want to open up the storyboard, and we want to start doing that basic layout of having like new game on the bottom and a toolbar on the iPhone, and then new game being the top and a nav bar on iPad. So let's go ahead and start off just by adding something specifically for iPhones that are in portrait. And what we're going to do is we're going to look up toolbar. So I'm just going to do a search over on the side here for toolbar. And then I'm just going to drag and drop it onto my display. I meant to put it at the very bottom. It was just hard for the screen real estate. I had to do that. So I'm going to set it right in the bottom there. And then I'm going to put on constraints 0, 0, 0. And then I'll let its height will just auto wrap, and that'll be great. If I want to change the name on this item, I can actually just select it. And then over the right, I'll say new game. And then what I want to do is I actually want it to be right justified. And the way you do this is you add a flexible space to the toolbar, and that'll make it snap over to the side. So that's what we're going to do on the iPhone. On the iPad, so we want the regular storyboard. So you'll notice that on the iPad, there's nothing here at present. What we're going to do on the iPad is we're going to actually add a nav bar, which admittedly looks pretty darn similar to a toolbar. But I'm going to take my nav bar and I'm going to drop it right up on top here. I'm going to do my best to get it on there, right in the top, with the left and the right matching. What we're going to do on this guy as far as constraints, we're going to go ahead and add a left and right and top, just so that this guy doesn't move anywhere. And then we are going to go ahead and put in a custom height of 68. So it's a little bit taller than the default height. And that's because we're going to make the font size on the title a little bit bigger there. Speaking of the title, we could go ahead and set it now if we wanted. So we could drop this down on the left. And you'll probably notice on the left that our toolbar is kind of faded out because we don't have the toolbar in this view, but it does exist on another view. And I'm just going to go ahead and write X's turn on here just so it's kind of got some default. And then what I want to do on this guy is I want to actually add a bar button. So the toolbar defaulted to have one on there, but the nav bar didn't. So I'm going to drop this guy on here. Note that technically it's a child of the nav bar item. That's totally fine. That's expected. And it's going to say new game as well. So what we're going to do is we want to connect both of these buttons to call the same function in our code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the editor assistant, and I'm just going to bring over, I'm going to get rid of this did receive memory warning first. I'm going to bring over a connection from both of these guys. So from here, I just want to right click drag and make an action. So this is for pressed new game. And then if I switch over to the iPhone version and I go to that same button, what I can do is I can right click drag from him over to press new game. Looks like I didn't grab the right thing. Let me make sure I've got the actual new game and not the toolbar, and drop him right there. Cool. And you could actually test this if you want. So you could just do a simple little print line, and you could say like pressed new game. And then if you run it, so right now I'm going to run it on an iPhone 6. It should show up on the bottom. And if I click it, it'll say press new game. And then if you were to run it instead on an iPad, so here I'll just run it on an iPad 2. And as soon as that comes up, you can click on new game here. And you can see that it's printing new game messages down there. All right, so we did most of the things I wanted to do, except I forgot to set it up to where it only does portrait iPad. So right now, if I did rotate it, it would do something I didn't want, and that would be resized for an iPad. It's kind of funny, the way it shows universal, so you go into your settings here, I clicked on this top thing. If you go into the universal, it says like portrait, landscape left, landscape right. Really, it should kind of show like two here. It should show like for iPad do this, for iPhone do this. You can actually like cheat and like temporarily be iPhone. So I want to uncheck those two for iPhone. But then for iPad, I want to make sure they're all checked, which they are. So in Universal, I guess it's showing us the iPad version, but I don't really love that. Or showing the iPhone version, and I don't really love that. Now on the simulator, if you run it on the simulator, it's going to look kind of funky. But on a real device, it looks fine, right? So I mean, it doesn't rotate. So if you were to rotate it, it will just like sit sideways. And I know that looks crazy on a simulator, or on a real device, that looks just fine, right? So no big deal there. Whereas if you run it on iPad, it will rotate. See if I can zoom out enough here. So if I rotate it on an iPad, it will actually rotate and go to the same spot, which is kind of cool. All right, that was all that I really wanted to do for this time around. We've got our two completely independent buttons that both say new game. They happen to call the same function, but only one of them is going to ever be present at a time. All right, that's it for kind of getting this guy started. Come back next time. We'll do some more with like designing views for a flexible layout. See you then.